Welcome back to SaharaTV. My name is Rudolf Okonkwo.
Hello, good evening.
Love him or hate him, our next guest has kept the issues surrounding the Lagos deportation of the so-called destitutes on the headlines. He has also expanded the discussion to include the question of Lagos. Is Lagos a no man's land? Mr. Femi Fani-Kayode was the Minister of Culture and Tourism, as well as Minister for Aviation under the government of President Olusegun Obasanjo. He recently joined the opposition party, the APC. Mr. Femi Fani-Kayode, welcome to SaharaTV.
Hello, good evening. Well, thanks for having me. My pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we are very happy. We wanted to talk to you last weekend, but you couldn't make it, so we're happy to have you today.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
Thanks so much.
Now, we have like 20 minutes for this interview, but we sent out questions to our viewers online and said, we are going to talk to you, and they sent us numerous questions. I will ask that in the course of this interview, so we try to make sure that we try to get to some of them. Now, let me start by telling you that a confession. The first time I actually read what you wrote was during the U.S. election last year. You wrote this essay that you called Nigeria is Obama the Antichrist. And it was fascinating. In the essay, you claimed that Obama was an antichrist with powers to command hurricanes, to come and alter the political situation in America. No. It was no.
Well, let me tell you what I said.
Yeah, this is the one. This is the part that actually touched me. You said that Obama healthcare bill will require all Americans to be implanted with a radio frequency identification chips in order to access healthcare by March of this year. And you wrote that the device will be implanted in the forehead or arms of people, and that it is in line with the prophecy in the book of Revelation.
No.
I read it. And
okay, fine. So do you want me to respond to
Yeah, you will. I'll give you the chance. But this is what I don't know if you know. I live in America here. There's nothing on my forehead. There's nothing on my arm yet. And most of the things you said there were basically the ideas of the people they call the right wing or the nutcases in America. And I wonder, did you believe what you wrote, or was that just an exercise?
Fine. Thanks very much for that question. It's a good opportunity to clarify this, since you are in America and since you are familiar with what is happening in America. First of all, I didn't write an essay titled "Obama is the Antichrist." That title
is Obama the Antichrist. You were asking the question.
Let me put it to you what happened.
Okay.
I didn't write an essay with the title "Is Obama the Antichrist?" Okay. I sent the essay in to a number of newspaper houses. All of them published it in this country. And the original title was "Can Barack Obama Be Trusted?"
Okay.
It was one newspaper that now changed the title to "Is Obama the Antichrist?"
Okay.
The reason they did that was because I made a reference within the essay to the Antichrist. And I never said Obama was or was not the Antichrist. What I said in the essay was that the spirit of the, I can't remember the exact words. I would have looked it up if I had known this was coming up. But what I said was that he had words to the effect that the spirit of the Antichrist had entered America. That is Obama part of those that's bringing it in there. Anybody that's familiar with Bible prophecy and eschatology, and I'm a student of eschatology, and I have a degree in theology, would know that the Antichrist is not going to come from America, he's going to come from elsewhere. So there's no way I could have suggested Obama is the Antichrist. However, certain things are happening in the United States, and indeed all over the world, that is, that things that have been prophesied thousands of years back in the Bible, and I happen to believe in the Bible, and I believe every word the Bible says. And as a student of eschatology, I always look at those things and check what's happening today. So I never said he was the Antichrist, but I did say the spirit of the Antichrist has come in.
Yeah, but you said that there will be marks on foreheads of people in America.
No, I'm coming to that. That was the third point you made. We just did the first one.
Okay.
Let me come to the second one before the third. The second point that you made was the issue of weather patterns and so on and so forth. Now, I am aware of the earthquake season in America and things like that. I'm fully aware of all that. The point I made in the essay was this, and I asked the question, what is the relationship with the elemental forces? And I'll explain to you why I put that question. What I said was that it's very strange, it seems strange to me, and you can go and cross-check this, that in 2008, just before the elections, the Republican Party was to have their primaries or whatever it was in a particular town in America. The day before that, those primaries took place. There was a very terrible storm, and I believe that, I'm not sure if people were killed, but I think that something happened and there was a lot of damage. They had to postpone the thing for about 2 or 3 days. Now, that was number one. The same thing happened 4 years later, just before the primaries took place for the Republican convention again in another town. Again, they had to postpone by a couple of days. And I just found it was very, very curious and strange. And it was more of a joke, that question anyway, to lighten up the essay. So I did not suggest for 1 minute that this man is some kind of wizard that can point to the sky and thunder and lightning will strike. What I did say was that, you know, it just seemed curious that each time those on the other side are about to gather and have some kind of, and you know, it's not a question of hurricane season, because this had not happened in previous years, 2 years in a row, ever, because I checked.
All right.
Understand? It's
All right. Let's
curious. Let's go to the third point.
Yeah.
Let's go to the third point on the Obama. Now, you know, you're absolutely right there. You know, these are things that, some of these things about the arm and the forehead and so on and so forth, I agree with you. I mean, this is something that all of us that are within the circles, Pentecostal, evangelical circles, believe that the mark of the beast will eventually come. Perhaps it was a little bit premature to say it would come by March 13. What I do know, however, is that with Obamacare, I am told, I'm reliably informed by friends of mine in the States, and you probably know better than me, that there is an element of some kind of chip at some point in time. Perhaps it was a bit adventurous to give a date, probably because I'm not sure if the whole thing has passed through yet. I'm not sure if it's fully implemented yet, and so on and so forth. I was assuming and presuming it would have been implemented or passed and implemented by that time. But whatever the case, even if we don't have the mark of the beast in Obama's America, eventually we're going to have it in other parts of the world and throughout the whole world, because I believe strongly that there is a new world order being established, and I believe strongly that at the end of the day, the Antichrist will rise and there will be many, many changes in the world. So, you know, that's just my position. All right.
The only reason why I pointed this out is that was my introduction to you. Your writing, not that I didn't know who you were, but your writing. And that if you had written exactly that essay in America here, mainstream people in America look at people who have those kind of thoughts as nutcases. That's just why
absolutely.
I
absolutely disagree. I absolutely disagree with you. I think people on the East Coast and on the West Coast may feel that, but I do not believe that those that share my beliefs, probably through the Bible Belt, probably through what I'd call parts of the southern states and so on and so forth, and they constitute probably 50% of the American people, would not say I'm not for saying that. Not only that, the liberals and those that live on the East Coast will probably also take those views very seriously, given the fact that the overwhelming majority of Americans that are churchgoers, particularly in Pentecostal circles, share those views and take them very seriously. Now, let me just tell you this much, okay? Where you have a situation where same-sex marriage is approved in some states in America, homosexuality is encouraged and approved, it's got to a point the President of America will come to Africa and tell us here that we must accept same-sex marriage and homosexuality. Where you have a situation where abortion is the highest rate in America and it's approved everywhere, and babies do not have the right to life. Where you have a situation where virtually everything that we hold valuable and important within the Word of God is something that is being encouraged in Obama's America and the new America. You know, yeah, sure, you'd think some of us are nuts because we believe in the Word of God. But where you have a situation where everything that is specifically banned by the Word of God is being accepted in America because it's now a liberal society, a permissive society where humanism is flourishing, then, of course, I would be the one to say those that do those things are the crazy ones, and not those of us that are conservatives or on the right wing. So it's a relative thing. It depends which side of the coin you believe in.
All right. Let's go to Nigeria because we have a lot to cover. First of all, let me start. I discovered recently that your grandfather schooled at Cambridge, and he was called to the bar in 1922, and your father also went to Cambridge. And so did you.
Yes.
So your family, you've been part of parcel of Nigeria's political and business elite for the past 100 years, you know, from the days of NCNC to your days in the PDP.
Yeah.
So my question is, will you say that Nigeria has not been good to you and your family?
No, I think Nigeria. Well, that's why I live in Nigeria. That's why I've chosen not to live abroad. Nigeria is my country. It's everything to me, and I love this country. And of course, Nigeria has been very good to my family. And not only that, my family have a stake in Nigeria because we've put in so much. Apart from my grandfather, my great-grandfather was the person that literally took Christianity to Ile-Ife. The generation before. That's Reverend Emmanuel Kayode. He took Christianity to Ife. He was educated by the Anglican priests. He went to Durham University. From there, he came back and he became an ordained priest and literally took Christianity to Ife. All his life he was there. Then he Ijebu-Ode. Then he now went to Ondo province as resident pastor and he built churches and so on and so forth. So, my heritage in Nigeria starts, 4 generations. And I'm a Nigerian. I love Nigeria. And yes, Nigeria has been good to us. And we have also put our lives into Nigeria, literally.
Now, I believe that Nigeria has been good to you. And people are wondering, there are some kids who have not had anybody in their family that went to college. And look at your pedigree, look at your family. And they're wondering, why are you, in your essays, which is the subject of what we're discussing today, why are you sounding as if you are not happy with what Nigeria has done for you and for your family? Why are you? For instance, you were close to President Obasanjo. You were a minister under his administration, and you had the chance to advise him. You had the chance to reform the country, and now you are complaining about things in the country that you could have done while you were with the president, while you were in government. Why couldn't you do that?
Right.
Why were you unable to do that?
All right. Thank you very much for the question. First of all, you said that Nigeria had been so good. I'm saying to you that we dedicated our lives for 4 generations to this country. And we're very proud of that. We made our input into our country. And what I'm doing today is still making an input into my country. I don't believe that simply because I've been privileged and simply because I've schooled all my life abroad and simply because I come from a wealthy family and so on and so forth, I should be very happy with the system that put me where I am or gave me the opportunities that it did. I think it's not good enough. I feel there should be more people that have the kind of opportunities that I have had all my life. And it pains me when I see a situation where things are getting worse rather than better, at least in the last 5 years. My career did not start with Obasanjo. My career in politics started in 1989. And for those years, from 89 up until literally the time I came back to Nigeria in 2002, I was actively involved in many, many things. And that was a time of struggle, trouble. And you can ask many of your colleagues. Senator Femi Fani-Kayode is there. Bumi Borishade is there. So many, they can testify to what I'm saying. I've made my own input into NADECO, into the fight against military rule, and into so many other movements and things long before. And I put my money where my mouth was. I helped fund OPC and so on and so forth. We did a lot of things during the Abacha's days, and I was writing very strong articles at that time, all the way from Ghana. I made my input at that time. I risked my life. I risked everything for Nigeria. So it's not a question of me just getting up on Obasanjo, bringing me in. Even Obasanjo, me working with Obasanjo, it was not an easy thing because I opposed the system when I came back. But he felt that he wanted me by his side. We now spoke. Eventually, I started working for him, and I was totally loyal to him. So I made an input long before going in government. It wasn't a cakewalk. I left everything. I left legal practice. I left an easy private life. I left life in the private sector. I threw myself fully into this thing, and I've been doing it for almost 20 years. That is how much I love Nigeria. Now, after I served Obasanjo's government, I defended him and the government because I believed in what he was doing. And if you look at the facts and the figures, I'm prepared to talk about Obasanjo's record in public office. I don't want to talk about Obasanjo as an individual. That's a different thing. All of us, not everybody's an angel. We all have our challenges, our shortcomings, and so on and so forth. But in terms of his record in public office, if you look at the facts and the figures, the statistics, and you know what you're doing, and you take the time to look at it, you will see that it is literally second. He has been second to none compared to virtually any other government in this country. And I'm very proud of that. 2007, we left office. When we left office, we handed power over to Yar'Adua. From that point in time, 2 or 3 years of Yar'Adua, and then a few years of Goodluck Jonathan, that's 6 years until everything has degenerated in this country. As each year passes, I've been watching it, every sector has deteriorated. Everything has gone back. Now, given the fact that I feel that we were partly responsible for bringing these people to power, I think it's also important, if we feel things are not going right, for us to stand up and say, no, you've got to change things.
Femi, let me stop you because you were talking about Obasanjo. We know what Obasanjo did. We know, for instance, that your government under Obasanjo, you spent 16 billion to give power to Nigerians, and you couldn't do that. We know instances of corruption that were investigated and nothing happened. But that's not what we're talking about. What I asked you and what I'm interested in is I want to know, what did you make any effort to reform Nigeria fundamentally? I'm not talking about.
Listen to me. You asked me why I'm not happy with Nigeria.
No, we moved on. We moved on on that. We moved on. We're talking about while you were with Obasanjo.
Specifically about Obasanjo.
Yeah. While you were with Obasanjo, what efforts were made to reform?
A simple question now.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough, Rudolf. I hear you. You made an assertion, which I think the premise itself is wrong and faulty, and this is part of the problem we have.
Okay.
Look, you said $16 billion was spent on the past.
Let's not go into that. Let's talk about. But people are interested. But there are facts. It's a fact everywhere.
Give me the opportunity to clear.
Okay.
No. Give me the opportunity to clear that with you once and for all.
Okay.
I'm telling you clearly and categorically, it is a lie.
Okay.
They put out a lie, and it was part of the Yar'Adua's propaganda to say that 16 billion. He said it. His special assistant on power at the time came up and wrote a memo to him saying, "Oh, God, this is not correct. This is what was spent." The next thing, he fired the man. It was only an attempt to mess Obasanjo and discredit him. The matter went.
Now, if I ask you how much was spent? How much was spent?
I'm going to come to that. I'm going to tell you that.
Okay.
I've got all the facts. I wrote an essay on it.
Okay.
The matter was now sent to was probed by the House committee when Bankole was chairman of the thing. So the whole thing was probed. Elumelu was the chairman of the committee. You should ask them what they discovered. Lili Moke, the former Minister of Power, went to that committee with all the documents, everything pertaining to the expenditure. At the end of the day, it was clearly established that the amount of money that Obasanjo spent in the 8 years that he was in power, as president of the country, was no more than $3 billion. 6 billion was approved. Of the 6 billion, only 3 billion was spent. The other 3 billion was stuck in central bank. Now, you can go and cross-check what I'm saying. And that is why the whole thing fell apart and they could not go ahead and you bring Obasanjo in and prosecute him. And let me also tell you there's another aspect that people don't know. In 1999, when Obasanjo came into power, cross-check this, we were generating 150,000 megawatts. 150,000 megawatts per annum, per day, sorry. Now, by the time he left office in 2007, we were generating 4,500 megawatts per day, okay? That was the increase. Now, since the time he left office, we have not reached 4,500 again. We've gone back. We're now hitting about 3,000 megawatts. So, and quite apart from that, again, all the turbines that were needed to boost it from 4,500 upwards were all at our ports. They had already been ordered. They were waiting to be distributed through the country. Yar'Adua allowed them to remain in those ports and rot away because he wanted to use that to discredit Obasanjo. If those turbines had come in and if they had implemented the policy properly, we would have had even more power. We would have hit 10,000 megawatts by now. So this is the reality. But people hear 16 billion, they just say, "Oh, that must be the truth." It's not the truth.
Okay.
You also spoke about the issue of corruption cases. I don't know of any other president, really, I didn't want to talk too much about Obasanjo because we're not in the same party anymore. But let me just tell you that you talk about that. We had more people within, the head of the police was prosecuted. The head of the Senate President was prosecuted. Nobody felt safe as long as Obasanjo was in power. None of his ministers, nobody. I was probed. El Rufai was probed. Ask Ribadu. He probed every single one of us, despite the fact that we were close. He probed us all. And it was not an easy thing. Definitely there was some elements of corruption within that administration. There's no question about that. But I can assure you it was not the same as it is today, and it was not the same as when Yar'Adua came in. And one had to be extremely careful with someone like Ribadu at EFCC, who was not prepared to take any prisoners. So, this is the reality. But what we have today is far worse. And what I'm saying, those of us that have benefited so much from Nigeria surely have a duty not to just marry the system and say, as long as we're okay, go to the villa, talk to them, be nice to them, they'll give you jobs, they'll give you contracts, they'll give you whatever you want. No, we shouldn't be doing that. If we feel anything is going wrong, we should be able to stand up and say no, that we need to change the system to make things better. And that's what a few of us like El Rufai, like Ribadu, like a number of others that were within Obasanjo's party and government before have decided to do now. I think we should be commended for it, rather than condemned and say, why are we making so much noise? I don't have to do this. We're doing it because we love our country.
Okay. Now, Femi, I asked you a question that I'm actually very interested in. You are pointing out in your involvement in public discussions that there are fundamental things that needed to be reformed in the country. And I asked, why were you not able to do that when you were close to the president, when you were minister?
Okay.
Why was that difficult? Did you try?
Can I answer that question?
Yeah.
I will answer the question by telling you this, okay? Every single sector, if you look at the indices, look at the facts and figures, you will find that those sectors were doing exceptionally well compared to what was happening before we came to power and what has been happening since we left power. If you look at finance, we had no debt by the time we finished. Now we're back in debt. If you look at the excess crude account, we had $45 billion when we left office. Now we're about $9 billion. We've gone back 5 years later. You look at the issue of our foreign reserves. At the time we left office, I believe we have $47 billion there. Okay. Now we're down to about, I don't know what it is, about 40. Okay. There has been no activity there. Look at every single sector. You talk about civil service reforms. You talk about reforms. In every sector, we improved the situation. The only area that I feel, when you talk about the economy, we did very well. When you talk about security, certainly a lot better than what's going on today. In the last 3 years, over 6,000 Nigerians have been killed by Boko Haram, the highest in peacetime. Other than the Civil War, we've never had such a casual rate of civilian deaths in this country. When Obasanjo was in power, he may not have got the security at 100%, but I can assure you, you didn't have those kind of mass killings of people. And wherever you had terrorist organizations or people that want to kill people in the name of the advancement of policy, he was prepared to do the hard thing and take a stand and fight them to a standstill to protect Nigerians. The only area that I feel that we didn't do very well, and you know, this is something that is a cause of great regret for me personally, is the fact that the whole issue of the Sovereign National Conference and so on and so forth, which is one of the things that a few of us, you ask, what did we do? Ask Julius Ihobere, who is now with the Edo State government. He was Obasanjo's special advisor. Ask Akim Shutoku, who was his special advisor. There are a few of us within his government that were known as the Nadeco ministers and aides. We fought day and night to get President Obasanjo to actually put a sovereign national conference in place because we believe strongly in the rights of the nationalities in this country. This is something that I've always believed in, and we fought it from within. Unfortunately, the conservative voices within that administration were far too strong for us, and we did not get our way. You know, so we tried our best. I was not president. There was no President Femi Fani-Kayode. The president was Obasanjo. I was simply working for him. So if you say, what did we do? We did our very best.
Femi, was Obasanjo in tune with you? Did he agree that it was necessary and he couldn't make it happen? Was it the conservative voices you are talking about? The conference, the Sovereign National Conference. Was it Obasanjo? Or was it other? Who are the conservative voices that made it not to be
let me tell you, President Obasanjo's government was filled with very, extremely conservative people, and at the same time, it had people that were liberals, people that were centrists, and a few people that were on the radical left. I'll say, some of us were a little bit on the left side. It was like a rainbow coalition, and the kind of fights we used to have within cabinets. You need to see it to believe it. And there are many people that were in that government that will be able to tell you this, if they want to be honest. It was not always easy for the president because we used to argue with him. And in terms of policy, in terms of what should be done in this country, the good thing about him was that he would let you air your views and he would argue with you and give you the time. Sometimes would convince him, other times would not convince him. Unfortunately for us, there were some, old school hardliners who just didn't believe there should be the kind of radical change that some of us wanted, from the older generation. And my Oga, of course, General Abdullahi Mohammed, a wonderful man, was chief of staff. He was very powerful. You have people like General Ali Uguso. These are establishment figures. They're very strong in this country up till today. And they have a different worldview to us. Their worldview is also positive, but they're very nervous of change. And you have to understand, Obasanjo himself came from the past. He's a creature of the past. And sometimes he's very cautious about change. But some of us believe we must have change and we must have it right away. And that's why many of us have left the PDP now and gone elsewhere.
All right, we don't have a lot of time left. Let's look at your essays that you've been writing recently, which is the subject of this interview. I just wanted to get a wider picture of things before we zero in there. You know, we are just starting.
Okay. Wow.
Okay. So what we all know what triggered the series of essays you've been writing, and most people that are watching, they've read your essays. And the first question I want to ask you is, Bola Ige used to talk about Nigeria being on a road to Kigala, you know, that's referring to the
Kigali.
genocide, in Rwanda. And during your time, your government, Obasanjo, the kitchen cabinet, they used to talk about Nigeria being on the road to Brazil. And I want to ask you, this your intervention in the discourse, are you pushing Nigeria towards Brazil or towards Kigala?
That's a great question. Well, God forbid that I should be pushing Nigeria towards the road of Kigali, because I believe in Nigeria, I love Nigeria, and I love all the people in Nigeria. Every single nationality in this country I love. I live in the North. I've lived in the North for over 10 years now, and I love every inch of this country. I will be the last person to want Nigeria to break up. However, let me just tell you this. There are two worldviews about Nigeria. The first one is that you must integrate Nigeria by force, which is what I call the old school worldview. That you must integrate Nigeria by force, make everybody Nigerians by force, pretend we have no differences, pretend we have no difficulties, and just hold us together by the sheer will of force and say that, look, we just must be like that, and Nigeria must move forward. That has been the view that's been prevalent. Of course, we claim to be a federation, but we're actually not a federation. We're a unitary state with a federal facade. That's what we have today, and that's how it's been since 1960. Now, that is the first worldview. The second worldview, and that is shared by people like me, is that we need to be able to talk about our differences in this country. In 1947, Chief Obafemi Awolowo wrote a book called Path to Nigerian Freedom, in which he said that Nigeria is not a nation, but a geographical expression. And within that geographical expression, you have many, many different nationalities that have their own culture, their own history, their own identity, and their own heritage. I'm virtually quoting the book verbatim. Then he now said, there is as much difference between a Fulani man and an Igbo man as there is between a Turk and a German. And I believe that that is the worldview. Well, I believe that what he said was correct, and I believe that that holds true till today, despite the fact that the integrationists have held power for so long. Now, what do I mean? It doesn't mean we should all go our separate ways. I do not believe in our country breaking up. What it means is that we need to understand that there are various nationalities in this country. We need to come together, have a sovereign national conference, discuss our differences, decide whether we even want to remain together as a country, discuss our differences if we're staying together on what terms, and to allow all the various nationalities to develop at their own pace. And I believe it's important also for us to sit down and fashion out a constitution that is truly the will of the people. What you have today, a whole load of very conservative people at the top that are literally making decisions for 160 million Nigerians, and they think they have an input. They have very little input. It is really not a democracy. It's a very, very strong centrist state. Everything is controlled by the federal government, and even some state governments tremble when you mention the federal government. It shouldn't be so. So I believe in self-determination. I believe in the rights of the nationalities. And that has always been my view, at least since 12. That has been my view, and I've stuck to that.
No, yeah. So you had these views while you were in government. And for the period you had the view, and I know.
That's what I told you.
And you said that you couldn't.
And that's why we fought with OBJ on so many occasions. Let me give you an example. There was a day when they locked up Dr. Fashion and Gani Adams when we were in power. And Aki Oshitoko and I felt very strongly about this. We went to see the president, and he literally told us to get out of the villa and so on and so forth, screaming at us because we stood for our, some of our leaders from the Southwest. I make no apology for being somebody that believes and loves in Nigeria, loves the country, but at the same time, I believe strongly in my own nationality, and I believe that as a nationality in terms of, I won't use the word tribe, I'll use the word nationality, because when you have 40 million people, it is a nationality, just like the Igbos are a nationality within a nation. I believe in that, and I think that should be respected. We should all respect one another. Now, when you talk about these issues about Lagos and so on and so forth, I carry all that. These are my beliefs. And it's that I believe that, in various parts of the country, each of the nationalities holds sway. And each of the nationalities can say that, look, this is mine, this is my area, this is my territory, this is where my ancestors invested so much and have always been. And I believe that we should be able to protect that if we have to at any point in time. That's all. I would not go to the east or to the north and presume that I am an Easterner or a Northerner. I'll go there because I'm a Nigerian and I'll settle there and I'll enjoy myself there and work hard there as I do in the north. But I would not for 1 minute presume that I am an owner of the land or I am part of them here. I would say, no, I have somewhere I came from. And I'll always go back there at the end of the day. So these are just it's a different worldview. It doesn't mean I don't believe in Nigeria.
Femi, so tell me, where are we going to if we believe that Nigeria is just something put in place for us to live and make a living and then go back to wherever we came from? What is the bigger picture? What is the bigger picture? Because the picture you are painting now, you're giving me the impression that somebody who was born in Lagos, who lived all his life in Lagos, must still find a hometown somewhere else, must still...
Let me explain to you where I'm coming from. First of all, I believe that the federal government in Nigeria, too much power is centralized at the center. And I believe that power has to be devolved, as is being done in the UK and everywhere else, to the various regions, okay? And I believe that the people of those regions should be able to govern themselves, okay? Now, if somebody feels that he's actually a Lagosian and he's never been to the east or he's never been to the north and he was born there, bred there, and so on and so forth, we don't have any problem with that. I've never had a problem with that. That was the case in the time of, during the 40s, the 30s, and the 40s, when people like Zik, Ernest Dikoli, and so on and so forth viewed as Lagosians more than they were anything else. And that is a pride for the Southwest that you can have people from other parts living there in a cosmopolitan situation where they're enlightened and liberal enough to say, look, it doesn't matter where you come from. You come here, you're part of us. That has always been our tradition. The problem, however, comes when the original indigenes of the land begin to feel threatened and provoked when people get up and say, well, this is not your land, this is not your territory, this is ours. There's nothing wrong with sharing, but at the same time, one also has to try their best to preserve one's identity. And it goes back to the whole issue of your worldview. Now, nobody has to fight about this. It's an intellectual exercise.
Femi, we are...
At the end of the day, you know how we can settle it. There's only one way to settle. It can only be settled when we are in a position to have a national conference in this country to determine where we want to go as a nation. Do we want to continue like this, or do we want to settle these issues once and for all, evolve power from the center, allow the regions to be a little bit more independent, and also be as liberal as possible and take in people from other parts? I'm not interested in saying people should be deported, people should be sent back to any... No, I believe very much in Nigeria and all of Nigeria's people. But I also believe that the culture and the history of the Igbos and that of the Northerners and that of the Yorubas should also be preserved, and our values and our ability to move our region forward. And that's all it is.
All right, Femi, we are going to take a break. And we are going to come back because I want to ask you specifically about the contents of your essays and whether you have any regrets on some of the things you've written on your essays. So let's take a few minutes break, 2 minutes break, and we will be back.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.